$2. And I'm hoping that it's you, hoping that it's you. If that's what this comes to, I still hope that it's you. I still hope that it's you.
I need Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I heard a very a noise background. Is it because of the very full crowd? Yeah, Ibu Widi.
Ah, right. Is it, you
Yes.
got a full crowd behind you?
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic.
It's okay. Yeah, yeah.
I'm not able to share my screen. Are you able to give me the permission to share
Oh,
my screen
yeah.
so that I
Yeah.
can
Please committee.
play the?
Yeah.
Give Professor Ford co-host status.
Yes, we already changed the yes, we already changed the setting.
Oh, yes.
And also maybe you can close the door so we can minimize the noise from outside.
No, this is not from the door. This is from our stage, I guess.
Ah, okay, okay.
I I think you can. What you can do is turn it off. There is a button like the triangle button, and then you should turn it off.
The screen sharing is still not working for me.
Yeah.
Oh, hang on. Now it seems to be okay. Let me just try this. Oh, yeah. Is this coming through?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Is this full screen now?
Yes.
Yes.
I just want to check what happens with the video. Let me try this one. Can you hear the audio?
Not yet.
Not yet. Not yet.
There's no
Professor
audio?
Fo-
There's no
No.
audio.
There's no audio.
No.
Okay, how do I get the audio?
Okay, we already have a 23 attendees, yeah?
Yeah, they're coming from the sponsor now.
Okay.
For a while, yes.
Committee, can you help Professor Ford to set up the audio setting?
I
think
found it,
Professor?
yeah, there is a little tick box, share computer sound.
Yes.
yes.
Optimize screen share for a video clip. Let me just try this again. Okay, now it tells me that if I want to share my audio, I need to install the Zoom audio device. Okay, let me do.
Yes.
Yes,
Is
now
it coming
it's
through?
perfect.
Yes.
It's just like
Perfect.
some very subtle sound in the background, yeah? Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. When I go into full screen mode, I still see your video, but I can't see the chat window. So if you want to get my attention, you actually got to say, you got to talk to me rather than put it into the chat, because I can't see the chat when I go full screen.
Okay.
Just in case there's questions in the chat, or if you want me to pause or anything else.
Yeah. Okay, Professor.
Pak Aswin, you can start right away. Thank you.
Okay, thank
no
you
worries. I'll
to
start.
WIDI and organizing committee. Good afternoon, Professor Marcus Ford, and ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our second session of our first day of the 8th Arte-Polis conference. I do believe that you already had a very pleasant morning session with Husam Elokda and all interesting discussion from batch, the first batch and the second batch. Right now we will come to our second session of today's conference. We already have here Professor Marcus Voth from Queensland University of Technology as our keynote speaker for this session. Thank you very much, Professor, and I hope you have a very health and stay safe there.
Thank you very much. Can you
Yeah.
just remind me how much time you want me to
Yes,
spend?
Professor, our second session will start at 2 p.m. until 3:15. So we will have both a presentation and also a discussion about one hour and 15 minutes. Afterwards, we will have 4 presenters starting from 3:15 until 4:15. So I will call our presenter. We will have Ibu or Miss Medria Sekarani. Are you already here, Medria? She will present the title Land Change Modeling, Design Cognition and Machine Learning. Our second presenter is Mr. Taufikur Rahman with presentation title Spatial and Temporal Pattern of Internet Engagement of Campus Community in relation to the Internet Reliability at ITB Campus of Jatinangor region. Mr. Taufikur Rahman, are you already here? Okay, I hope you already here. Our third presenter is Ibu or Miss Rizky Amalia Ahsani with presentation title Visual Environment for Learning Environment in the Digital Era, a Review. And our last presenter is Bramanti with presentation title Creative Planning in Place Identity and Local Distinctiveness and Social Media, Cultural Tourism Destination of Setu Babakan, Jakarta. Ladies and gentlemen, my name Aswin Indra Prasta from School of Architecture, Planning and Policy Development. I will be your moderator of this session. So without further ado, before we listen to our keynote speaker, I will briefly read Professor Marcus Voth biography. Professor Marcus Voth biography is a professor of Creative Industry Faculty, School of Design Office, Interactive and Visual Design from Queensland University of Technology. His discipline is design practice and management, information system, communication, and media studies. So he has already very high H index. I read from ResearchGate. Congratulations, Professor. So you are very prominent figures to discuss about more than human futures, connected urbanism and cohabitation in the smart city. I hope all of the attendees here can learn or have insight from new knowledge or new experience from your study. Okay, Professor Marcus Voth, the time is yours.
Great. Thank you so much, Aswin. I'm very pleased to be talking to you. I would have loved the opportunity to actually travel to Bandung myself. I have not yet been to Indonesia, although it is so close, which is something that we definitely have to rectify once the travel restrictions have been lifted and we can travel again. So in order to make up for it, we've been having plenty of Indonesian food here in Brisbane. So hopefully I can at least share in some of the culinary delights that Indonesia offers here to Brisbane people as well in Australia. So the presentation I've prepared for you, I mentioned this already yesterday during the opening gala. It comes in 3 parts. It talks about a little bit of the background of what we've been doing over the last couple of years. That's the first part to it. But I also reflect on some of the problems that we've been running into and how we've been reflecting on our design practice and our architectural practice, our computer science and technology practice. And so that leads me to the second part, which will then talk about some of these ways of problematizing our practice, our research, And then in the third part, I'm going to hopefully end on a positive note, which is some of the more constructive ways that we've been trying to reorient our work, our research work. So this is based in Brisbane in Australia. I'm based at Queensland University of Technology. It's now embedded in the QUT Design Lab. And for the last more than a decade by now, we've been focusing on this topic of the smart city. And a lot of the time when I mention this term, it gets different reactions. So the reactions in research are often that this is an area that is very much a marketing ploy. It's just about branding. It's throwing a lot of technology at the city, and it doesn't necessarily engage with the much longer term research in urbanism and architecture. So it's a lot of the technology companies that have arrived around 2011, 2012, and now they are putting all this technology infrastructure into the city. The view from government and from industry is obviously different. They're getting very excited about the smart city. They say that this is going to be the future. They say that this is about driving efficiencies. It's about driving livability, sustainability, and productivity. Those are usually the three things that they're hoping to do. So that has been a bit of a focal point for our research. And I show you this little clip that I'm just going to play. Hopefully it's not too loud that you can still hear me. This is done by my colleagues at MIT at the Sensible City Lab. And they created this mobility, this global mobility index. So you can see the time zone as the world wakes up. And you can see that whilst we have all these cultural differences across the world between Australia, Indonesia, the Middle East, now it's turning into Europe, and Europe is waking up. When you look at the planet from above, from a far distance, from space, the cities behave in a very similar way in terms of the mobility. So this rush hour phenomenon is actually a global phenomenon that happens in all of these places across the world like clockwork, according to the time zone. And a lot of the focus of the smart city has been about congestion and mobility and transport, and trying to figure out what can we do to unlock the roadblocks, how can we make the traffic flow faster, and how can technology help us. And so I think a huge push when it comes to the smart city has been around transport and mobility. But there's other parts to the smart city. Another part to it is urban planning. So one of the interests we have in addition to mobility is also about how do we accommodate more and more people. If we have this kind of scenario that you see here, which is to symbolize urban sprawl, we run into problems because these kinds of cities, they're not necessarily very livable. They also have a problem with regards to the impact on the environment. We actually have a very high rate of land clearing here in Australia, and that is a problem for our own health and well-being. Then we have another aspect of the smart city, which is data and the IoT devices that produce this data. So a lot of the excitement that comes in that smart city space is based on the fact that ubiquitous computing and the increasing investment in IoT devices and ubiquitous computing means that all of these different sensors are producing data all the time. And people are getting very excited about what can be done with that data. How do we analyze it, both from a research point of view, but also increasingly from a governance point of view. So you might have seen these kinds of control centers that have been a bit of a poster image in order to actually point the finger at what is the smart city. When you think of the smart city, what are you looking at? And so I would now say in the old days, these are the kinds of images that came to mind, which is this idea of a control center. This one here is in Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro. It was already installed, I think, around 2012, 2013. These kinds of control centers are now actually very common. So many cities have installed this kind of infrastructure in order to combine the governance and management of the built environment with data and technology analytics capabilities, to have these analytics features that can optimize and drive efficiencies in the city, whether it's traffic or waste management, whether it is emergency response, response to flooding, and the list goes on. Now, I'm of the view that some of these approaches are really useful and necessary, but at the same time, a lot of these approaches are very engineering centered. So this picture is supposed to kind of illustrate this conundrum that a lot of the problems are not really rethought from a design, from a humanities point of view. They're always reduced to an engineering point of view. And if that's the only perspective that you have, then, you know, a traffic congestion can be solved by, you know, maybe this solution where we just drive over the traffic. I've seen these renderings of buses in China where the bus glides on rails above the traffic congestion that happens in the tier 1 cities in China. So what we are trying to do in our research in urban informatics, we are working on combining not just engineering and technology knowledge, but we are also trying to get at the problem of cities from a social and from a spatial point of view. So these are the 3 areas that we are combining in this Venn diagram. It's people, place, and technology, and the different sub-disciplines that come together. So rather than just being about engineering and technology, we also bring together researchers from a sociology, from an architecture, from a design background. And we are working together with these different backgrounds and with these different methods and theories. Now, this happened in QUT in 2006. And you can see on this timeline that that was quite early days. So in addition to the colleagues at MIT in 2004, they started, we were quite early adopters of this type of research. And then since then, there has been a bit of a mushrooming of this field of work around urban informatics and urban science, and the combination of the physical built environment and the digital. We've been doing this now for over 10 years. You can see that sometimes we also have fun. This is one of our retreats where we take all our researchers and PhD students to the beach once a year. This had to actually be canceled this year, unfortunately, but so far we've been doing this on an annual basis to also be able to retreat and refresh our thinking and our creativity. And as I mentioned, all of this work is now embedded in a larger research center that is the QUT Design Lab, which also incorporates now other areas such as robotics. We have a big program around humanitarian architecture and design that has an international orientation. And there's quite a bit of work in Papua New Guinea, for instance, as well as other work that we are trying to get off the ground in India. And so there's other design areas that get added. Now, this is quite a diverse group, but also quite a diverse portfolio of projects. So we are not just working on data and the usual smart city projects that are around data analytics and data visualization. You can see here we also have projects around mobility, sustainability, entrepreneurship, issues of gender and community engagement, and the list goes on. And so it's quite an exciting place to be in, because there's always new thinking and new creative ways of looking at the city space, the urban space. Just a couple of examples of the types of projects we've been doing. Overall, we've been guided by a human-centered design approach. So we started off from looking at the space of the digital and the physical, and we observed in the early days that it was very technology-centric. And so what we wanted to do is to get at it from a more human-centered point of view and apply human-centered design approaches. So this one here, for instance, is a photo taken in Melbourne at Federation Square, which is our big public square in Melbourne. And they have a screen there, and we developed an application that allows people, bystanders, to send text messages onto the screen in order to participate in this kind of civic life. This was done when Cadel Evans won the Tour de France at the time, and he came back to Australia to do his victory parade in Melbourne, and people congratulated him and so forth. This was extended into another community engagement activity that we call the Insta Booth, which is a project that is rethinking community engagement. Rather than community engagement being done behind closed doors, inside town hall, with urban planners conducting workshops, we wanted to flip this on its head, and we wanted to take the engagement to the people. So the engagement happens here in this booth that can be deployed and set up in a situated manner in space, and it can be done next to where development is planned to occur. So that allows people to then actually be in the space where things are supposed to be developed or changed in the future by the city government. And so we have a combination of analog and digital ways to get feedback from people. And the other addition that we thought of is that people can see each other's feedback. So it's different to the old way of getting engagement done, which is where you submit your feedback into a black box and you don't know what happens. And here you actually have a situated discussion with others, and you can see what they've contributed. Another area that we were quite interested in, coming back to this notion of the control room and this idea of data analytics, is to get people involved in the data analytics. And so rather than this idea of a control room, like the one in Rio that I showed you earlier, that is, in a secret location, it's all secure, and there is specially and highly trained experts working on the data analytics. What we are trying to do here is bring the data analytics to the people. So the example here is that of food trucks. They come and they set up their trucks in different locations in Brisbane, and they sell food. It's like street vendors. What we've done is we've taken the data analytics to the street vendors. So we've been setting up these booths where they can optimize the way that they position themselves in Brisbane in order to sell food. Previously, they would do this on a much more ad hoc and random basis. So they would just pop up anywhere. Sometimes you could have the situation that you would have, 2 Italian trucks sit next to each other because they didn't know they were both turning up at the same time. So we wanted to give them a better ability to be more strategic about the way that they position themselves. So they can actually engage in the spots where they prepare the food and make better decisions about where they go. The data that we've also incorporated here is about where in the city are people congregating. So for instance, there might be large-scale events like concerts or sport events. There might be postgraduate students that have after-hour classes on campus, and then all the retailers are shut. And so if they want to have dinner, then the only food options is the vending machine and a microwaved meal. So when the food trucks arrived, it actually has both a supply and demand that is meeting there in the middle. And so we've optimized this kind of data mashup, not to be tucked away and top down, but to be actually available and accessible to these small businesses and freelancers that are operating these food trucks. And that was quite a successful way. It was also a great way to create an example of what the smart city can look like if it's more human-centered and if it's more accessible to you and me, not just to the people governing from above. I've written this up a while ago where we were talking about this idea of a smart city that should start with people first. And this was written up as this little news article for the conversation. And we've also published about this over the years. This one here is an edited book that is talking about the citizens' right to the digital city. And it has different contributions on urban interfaces, on activism and placemaking. And also more recently, we've been engaged in the notion of living labs and how they can be used as a way, as you can read here in the byline, valuing local knowledge and enhancing engagement. And again, this book brings contributions together from around the world. So this is kind of setting the scene for what we've been doing since 2006. But in the last couple of years, we've been getting more and more concerned. And this is now getting to the second part, which is where I talk about the problems. And so the problems are that there is a darker side to what we are doing here. And what we are trying to understand is how we are complicit in the larger problems that the world is facing by the work that we are doing, not just at QUT, but overall. And so I'll hope that in the second part, I can take you on this journey and explain what I mean, that this is actually quite problematic. And then in the third part, I'll try and talk about what we want to do about it. So one of the very painful experiences that we've had in Australia end of last year and over our summer period, December and January, February, were the bushfires. And the devastation and the destruction has been very, very bad and very severe and very ongoing. It is a unprecedented event in terms of its scale, not only in terms of the costs and the destruction of homes, also the loss of life. But what for me has been the most shocking figure is the close to 3 billion animals that have perished in the fires. And that is at a scale that is not in line with what Australia is used to, because Australia has always had bushfires. Australia is a very dry continent. We have different biodiversity zones, and fires are actually a natural element in many ways. Some of the plants, for instance, require fire for the seed pods to open. Only at very high temperatures would the seeds open and actually release seeds for the next generation of plants to grow. But what happened in this last summer season was unprecedented and was very shocking. And so the impact of climate change on the country is something that we are grappling with. And we are also now trying to see what can we do, what is our role as researchers in the space of arts, humanities, and design. If you look at this graph, it looks at the different scenarios of acting on what the climate scientists are telling us. And so the green part of the graph is the optional vision of a fully decarbonized world. And you can see, even this is from 2015 onwards, so it's already 5 years old, but I think it's still a nice illustration. You can see that even in that scenario, the temperature is still going to go up for a while. We are currently more in the orange, yellow and orange area. And you can see that the impact would be, devastating, not just on animals, but also on the oceans, the impact for food production and agriculture, and human habitat is just going to not be tenable anymore. Now, a lot of this stuff we've known for a long time. We just have to find a way to understand what people have been telling us for a long time. This is actually something that came out of the Club of Rome, The Limits to Growth, and it was published in the 70s. So a lot of the kind of warning signs and signals have been around for a long time, and we've been very good at ignoring them. The other thing to keep in mind is that whilst we have known about this for a long time, a lot of people are trying to do the right thing. And so this commentary here that I find really useful, the headline is "Neoliberalism has conned us into fighting climate change as individuals." I think this is really, really crucial for designers and people in the field of the arts and humanities. What this opinion article talks about is the habit and the usual approach of designers to work on the individual. We have this notion of usability. We have this notion of human-centeredness, as in the one customer. And we usually think of it as individuals that need to be serviced in terms of human comfort and human convenience. And so if we do something about climate change, it has been largely at that very individual level. So you've been told, please, install a water efficient shower head. Please save water, please save electricity, please use your plastic bags again. Do all of these small little things, and then it will all get better. Well, I'm here to tell you that that won't get better, and that all of these small little changes are nice little things to do. But whether I use a plastic straw for my drink or I don't, will eventually not make any difference to the bigger picture that we are all have to address, which is the factor of scale. So this article is talking about that our current system is conveniently ignoring the leveraging factor of scale when it comes to policy change, when it comes to government decision-making, when it comes to decision-making by large corporations. So if you make a decision about whether you're going to have a plastic straw in your drink or not, that is one decision. But if McDonald's makes a decision, it affects the whole planet. So if they were to phase out plastic straws, the leveraging factor is much, much larger. And so what we actually have to work on, in addition to individual consumption choices and lifestyle choices that we make, is we have to come together and we have to get the people in power to actually exercise and utilize the leveraging power that they have. Now, I was talking to Iona, who's giving the keynote presentation after me this evening. Iona is based in London, and we were talking on Facebook, and I said, it's great to see you here as a speaker, and you're going to come right after me in the schedule. And it would have been nice to meet, but at least we are saving on the carbon footprint. And Iona said, well, we're actually, using a lot of carbon by our use of the internet, whether it's Google searches, whether it's storing data in the cloud, whether it's the Zoom teleconferencing. And the latest figure that I found is that our internet use, which is all the data stored, all the searches done on Google, all the streaming, all the Netflix, all the videos, it has now gotten over 10% of humanity's electricity use. So if you think of everything that humanity does, in addition to aviation, manufacturing, and so forth, the internet and everything that the industry calls in the cloud, it doesn't actually happen in the cloud. It happens, as you can see here in the background, in these data storage centers, in these data warehouses. And the electricity consumed by all these devices is now a 10% share of everything that we use. In addition to that, and this is video footage that the Washington Post produced, this is video footage from the Congo. And what you see here is in everyone's pocket. It's in my phone. It's in my laptop. It's probably in your laptop as well. And this is cobalt. Cobalt is needed for lithium-ion batteries, and the cobalt comes from mining activities, and in many cases they are unregulated. It's done through these kinds of laborers that are digging tunnels into the ground. It's not part of any large corporation whatsoever. And if they find something, they on-sell it to intermediaries, and then eventually it gets put into markets, and then eventually it might end up to be sold to Tesla, to BMW, to Samsung, to Apple, and the other kinds of device manufacturers. So what we also have to consider in this is when we as designers are talking about mobile phone applications, IoT devices that are measuring and monitoring air quality, for instance, we try to do the right thing. We are trying to work on sustainability. We are trying to, for instance, get our city to be more sustainable. But as we are, as designers, pushing for applications on these devices, the sustainability problems get shifted to other parts of the world. So they get shifted to the Congo. And then once the device is at the end of its life, it gets thrown away and it turns into e-waste. And so we have the problem of these very large volumes of devices accumulating. And this is all devices that used to be doing, what we mentioned earlier, which is efficiency gains, optimization, productivity goals, lifestyle, and livability and sustainability. So all the kinds of things I mentioned earlier, this is the waste product of it. And there is people that are trying to make a living by recycling them. But as you can see, these are very dire conditions. And I'll show you some food. This is all done by a photojournalist from The Guardian. And it's also very toxic. That's the other problem. I'll show you this video, which is from Al Jazeera, and they've been looking at Accra in Ghana, in Africa, and the waste side over there. So I'll just play this one. I hope this comes through.
So we are here at the Agbogbloshie electronic waste dump site. Indeed, the biggest electronic waste dump site in Africa, I'd say. This is where electronic waste, television sets, computers, microwaves, refrigerators from most developed countries end up. Then you find kids, some as young as 5, 6, 7, 8, coming here to dismantle, to break open these electronic waste just to salvage metals such as copper. They sell these things to buy food, they use some of the money to buy food, and they give some money to their parents, and some would use part of the money to buy whatever they need to go to school.
The boys who are engaged in the burning inhale the fumes that come out of it, and that bioaccumulates certain hard toxics in their body. In our bid to ascertain that impact, we conducted the blood analysis of about 49 of these recyclers. The results revealed that the accumulation of lead in these boys are above the required standard, which is health threatening.
So I'm showing you this as an example of what designers have to factor in. Usually what happens in especially commercial scenarios of design, you are given a brief and you have to work towards that brief. But that is not a realistic way of how design works in the world, because whilst a company that pays for the brief and pays for the design, they might want to sell things and they might want to optimize for human comfort and human convenience. But as a responsible designer, what we actually need to figure in figure out and factor in is the impact that our design activity has beyond that design brief. And the problem really that I'm trying to get at in this section of my talk is, what are we going to do about it? Because everyone feels that they are too small and everyone is too limited in their circle of influence and their level of responsibility. This was discussed by Mike Montero, I think, as one of the most prominent kind of commentaries. This is a post that he's done online in 2017, which is called "Ethics Can't Be a Side Hustle." It's called "Ethics Can't Be a Side Hustle" because there is a bit of a recognition amongst designers and tech workers that sometimes we are engaged in unethical companies. If you work for Uber or Airbnb or different companies, you would have seen the media coverage on some of the problems it creates, the gig economy, the precariousness of labor, the way that people are getting paid very little for the work that they do, whether it is smart cities and its notions of surveillance and issues of privacy. So as a result of that, what Silicon Valley and what a lot of these companies have started to do is to give people some time off. So you have time off on Friday, and on Friday, you can do something good. So you can do something for a community, you can do something for the kindergarten, you can do something for the nature club, for the creek cleanup project. So there is some time that you get off, and you can use your skills, and you can even use company resources to help these different initiatives, these different nonprofits or community groups. And so what Mike Montero here is saying is that that doesn't work. You can't have ethics offsets in the same way that people are telling you can have carbon offsets. So you create something that is very bad over here, and you're then trying to make up for it by doing something good over there. And his argument is that doesn't work. And these ethics offsets, they need to stop. As a community of tech workers, of designers, of artists, we have to come together and we have to have a debate about this. And so I think this debate has now started. I still think it's early days, but we need to have this debate urgently. And so Mike actually went and has written a whole book about it. And his book that was, I think it came out already end of last year. It's called Ruined by Design. So it's quite provocative, but I encourage you to check it out. The byline here is how designers destroyed the world and what we can do to fix it. And there's even this little label there because the book gets sold on Amazon, and he, in a very tongue-in-cheek kind of way, has put a sticker on his book that says, "Attention Amazon workers, you have the right to decent working conditions. You have the right to bargain collectively. You have the right to form a union." And there's even a call for the Amazon workers to join a union. Now, thinking of design and Silicon Valley and technology workers, and then this old notion of a union, of joining a union, a workers' movement, that's quite a strange contrast, but it's actually really needed. And so what this second section is looking at is our complicity in the world's destruction. The way that what we are doing is actually, and what we've been doing in our lab as well, we've been producing mobile phone applications, we've been producing more technology gizmos, we've been looking at the sustainability of cities, but only the city. We've not been looking at what happens if all these IoT devices are installed in Brisbane, and the fact that they are designed from a planned obsolescence point of view. So in 2 years' time, they are obsolete and new ones have to be installed, and the old ones end up somewhere in Malaysia. They might even end up in your beautiful country, and they might end up polluting Indonesian waterways. I've been looking at the news, and there's a lot of export of Australia's rubbish to Indonesia. And I'm very ashamed and embarrassed that this is happening in the world. And it's not just happening between Australia and Indonesia, it's also happening between the US and China and between other countries. And so we have to think of these larger dynamics and relationships, and we have to see what is our role in this. And so this gets me to the third part and the last part of my talk, which is where we want to imagine what a post-anthropocentric city looks like, and also by virtue of that, what does post-capitalocentric design look like? So the notion of the Anthropocene is about the humans and humanity's involvement in changing the planet. It's not just the weather, it's not just influences such as the sun and the elements, it's actually us, our human activity. But the commentary around the choice of words, the Anthropocene, is quite interesting, because we are not all responsible equally. In fact, if you have a person in a township in South Africa, or you have someone in a favela in Brazil, you can't really blame them for what they are doing. They are just trying to make ends meet. And so the commentary that led to the proposal of changing this term to the capitalocentric city, or the Capitalocene, is actually recognizing that what isn't at fault, what is at fault isn't the human, what is at fault is our economic system. Our economic system values profit, and it values growth, and it values selling things. What it doesn't value is the things that are good for us, the things that are good for health and well-being, the things that are good for the planet to survive, and the things that are good for planetary health and well-being. And so the notion of the Capitalocene is pointing not at you and me as humans, it's pointing at our economic system. And so that is kind of one of the larger kind of starting points of what are we doing about this. Now, I'm going to show you a couple of examples just to kind of stir the debate. I'm very happy to then have some Q&A. Hopefully we have enough time for that as well. This is a group of master's students, Master of Service Design students that I taught in Milan, in Italy, last year. And in Italy, in Milan, there is this building that's called the Bosco Verticale, which is Italian, and it means the vertical forest. And it's quite a famous building. It was built around the World Expo in Italy in 2014, I believe. And it's very impressive. Once you're there, it's even more impressive than on this photo. So you can see all these actually quite mature trees that are growing on the facade of the building. The other side, though, to this is and we've been doing field work there and been researching this building. When you are living in that apartment, you're very rich because these apartments are very expensive. So one of the problems that we found is that this isn't for everyone. This is for very rich people. The second problem is that it looks like this is designed for people who like nature, who like to be on their balcony and who like to do gardening. No, none of that. You're not allowed to do anything there. You're not allowed to touch your balcony. You can't touch your trees because it's an insurance risk. So the building is insured, which means that if it's windy or if it's rainy, you don't want any of these trees to fall over the balcony and injure someone. And so these insurance complications means that there is a company that is engaged that looks after the landscaping and maintenance of the building, and they take care of all the trees. So you are not allowed to do anything. The third problem is that the types of habitat it creates for animals and species may not actually be natural to what it lives in Milan, in that geographic area. So they have a problem with rats that move into the building when they might have actually wanted to attract birds, because birds might like to, start nesting there, which would be, quite nice. And so whether this building is actually providing habitat for the more than human, for not just the human occupants, for the more than human occupants, is actually questionable. So when we design these green buildings, sometimes they're just greenwashing, which means they look green so that you pay more, but they're not genuinely sustainable. They're not actually doing us any favors necessarily for moving our world forward. And so these different tensions and dynamics, they have to really be factored into the design. Is this just a prestige project that makes the architect win awards? Or is this a genuinely sustainable project that helps the humans and more than humans be healthy and sustainable? So this idea of the more than human, I like to, there's quite a bit of literature on this, and I don't have the time to go through it all, but I do want to point out a couple of pieces. One is this book by David Abrams that came out in '96. And he talks about the spell of the centuries, perception and language in a more than human world. And I highly recommend it because it's a nice introduction to this concept of the more than human, and also how it then can be translated into the design field. So from this book, it actually has influenced, I think, a lot of thinking in different disciplines, in the environmental humanities, in design and architecture, in philosophy, in cultural studies, in science and technology studies, and so forth. And there's a whole bunch of different notions of how this gets translated, whether it's about cohabitation or the idea of mutualism or transition design. I'm happy to share these slides with you that you can look at some of these references later down the track. One of the things that stands out of translating the more than human idea into the world of design is Laura's work, which was published in the MIT Press Journal Design Issues. And she, in this article, talks about decentering the human in the design of cities. And you might look at this and kind of think, aren't we wanting to have a human-centered approach? Why is she talking about decentering the human? And I think this is really interesting and timely, because when we have human-centered design, it often gets translated into what is good for the company that pays for the design brief. So it's about human comfort and human convenience. But what is comfortable and what is convenient for us is not necessarily good for the planet. So in the longer term, it might actually come back to bite us, because we are causing all this havoc on the planet. And it is part of this human-centeredness that we are so obsessed just about ourselves. So the vision for a post-anthropocentric design is that decenters the human and puts the human back into a perspective of ecology, of entanglement. We are actually connected to each other and connected to nature. And there is different and very dynamic and complex relationships with natural systems and the ecology of nature. And so indigenous peoples have had a very genuine appreciation of that relational kind of existence that we have on the planet. And what the more than human notion is about is to rediscover this for design, to rediscover relationality and the way that we need to think in design in a more circular manners rather than linear manners. I give you an example. This is a photo taken just at the entrance of our campus. There is a bridge that goes over the river. And at nighttime, these trees are all lit up with what we call fairy lights, these tiny little LED lights. Now, you might think that's very pretty. The problem, though, is that these lights that as humans, and there is a bit of human-centeredness in this because they've been installed to make us think, oh, this is very pretty, it's so cute, let's take some photos. But this is a problem for the more than human. So these trees are habitat for nocturnal animals, and in Australia we have different night active birds. We have also marsupials like possums that are arboreal. That means they live in trees. And if these trees are all wrapped up in lights, it's both a danger and safety problem because of the electricity and the cables and the entanglement, but also the lights themselves is light pollution because these possums have very big eyes and it's far too bright for them. Now, one tree might not be as bad, but this is what happens in a number of cities across the world. This is an example of China. So this is a media architecture example where all these skyscrapers are synchronized and they have animations along the river. And so all these media facades are lit up in synchronicity. This is terrible for insects because insects are attracted to light, and we are facing a what the Guardian here calls an ecological Armageddon because of the decline of insects. And it's not limited to insects. I'll show you this video. I'm just turning down the volume. What you see here looks like insects, but this is actually birds. And these are birds that at the time that this was filmed, they were trapped in the lights, the tribute lights at the World Trade Center, the 9/11 Trade Center site in Manhattan in New York. And because these lights that were pointing into the sky, they are so bright, these birds that were migratory birds, they were trying to get from Canada back to Mexico, they got stuck in those lights because they were disoriented. And so they were flying in circles and they were using all their energy and then they were falling dead onto the ground, and they would, that was it. So sometimes these human-centered designs that we come up with, they are terrible for them. They might be nice for us, but they are terrible for our non-human and more than human friends. There is certain glimpses where this gets recognized, but we need far more of this recognition of the natural world. This one here is an example from Bristol, where lightworms, for instance, that are also attracted to other light, they can't mate if there's all these distracting other lights. It confuses them. And so the city of Bristol decided that from May to September, they're going to switch the lights off so that these endangered lightworms can find each other. There is other examples in architecture. What I find quite fascinating is the Living Building Challenge, the LBC, by the Living Futures Institute. We have a lot of, in architecture, a lot of building assessment frameworks. There's the WELD standard, there's other kinds of energy efficiency standards, but a lot of these energy efficiency focused frameworks, they forget about, again, our embeddedness and entanglement with the neighborhood and with the habitat. And so the LBC here that you see, it actually has energy in there, but in addition to energy, it also looks at water, place, health and happiness, materials, equity, and beauty. So it's a much more holistic way of looking at place relationships. It's not just about efficiencies. And this is an example out of the legal field, which I think will have interesting repercussions for design as well. This is about legal personhood, which is where entire river systems, this is like examples of two rivers in India and also a river in New Zealand. They were given legal personhood. So they are protected the same as a person. And there's a rights-based framework that can be employed in order to protect them. The question for designers then comes as looking at what does it mean? What does it mean for the river system if, for instance, development is supposed to occur? And how does this get implemented? What can design do to actually assist such a governance structure in India or governance structure in New Zealand? So, for instance, is there going to be a committee? Is there going to be people that sit around a table and they act on behalf of the river? So if you are charged to be responsible for this river with some other people as well, what do you do? Do you have access to data? Do you have access to reports, to statistics, to air pollution or to water pollution data? Like, how do you actually fulfill your job? I think that is a design question that would be interesting to unpack further. Now, in my own life, and I'll finish on these couple of slides, I've been trying a couple of things in my own place. So this is me, I'm a hobby beekeeper, and right above here, there is a beehive. And so I got bees here in the city, and I study not just smart cities and technology, but also how humans interact with nature in cities. And so I've been interested to see what happens if I have a beehive very close to my home. You can see there's the queen there with the pink dot, and all the girls around her, they're all female. There's a couple of drones. So the drones are the male ones. And there's the hive above our balcony. So you can see that the apartment is really right here, and the balcony and the rooftop slab is where the beehive is located. So that's been really interesting from the point of view of kind of seeing how not pets, but actually wild animals, in this case insects, interact with human habitat. We've also been in Australia trialing this new hive design, which is called the flow hive. So you can see that these frames there, they're actually specific frames that the bees go into and deposit honey. And when it comes to the harvest, you can actually harvest the honey from behind without disturbing the bees. So it's a much more, I suppose, a more than human design, because it thinks of the bees first. It thinks of how do they operate, how do they live, how do they behave, and how can this be done in a more harmonious way. So I don't need a smoker for this particular part. I can actually harvest the honey without disturbing the bees. I still have to look after them in the normal fashion, and I have to inspect the brood box and look after them as well. This is one of the possums, and the possum lives in a nesting box, and you can see that's on our balcony as well. And I'm interested again in the kind of interaction between an animal that isn't a pet. So this possum is wild. You don't want to get too close or make it angry because it would scratch. But at the same time, it's nice to have wildlife that comes into the city and is part of where we live. And how do we design spaces that afford both the human comfort and human convenience, but also the more than human comfort? So I think this possum looks very comfortable. We've been writing about this in a couple of publications, so I'll finish off with these different pointers to readings. This is about the light pollution and the media facade piece, which is a paper that we've published at the Media Architecture Biennale. We've also been looking at the kinds of design methods that we need. So this was a workshop that we've done in Belgium, where we've taken on the role, the persona, if you'd like, or the more than human persona of a living species. So I was obviously a bee. We've had different bird species, toads and frogs, and we were mapping the city from the points of view of different animals and what it means for them to live there. In this piece, we are looking at the post-anthropocentric notion in the context of smart cities. And this one here is published in the Architectural Science Review. It's comparing the different building performance assessment frameworks like the LEED system, WELS, and the Living Building Challenge. And it's contrasting this with where we have to be, not just the incremental changes where we want to be, but the kinds of targets that are set by the IPCC and the kinds of reductions that we have to achieve. And you will see that if you read this paper, that there's a huge gap, which is this number 3 there in the middle, that we need to overcome. So we've been starting to reorient this urban informatics lab to a new group, a new research group. And this is called the More Than Human Research Group that is researching more than human futures. And this is relatively new. It was only established at QUT in July. And we got quite a bit of traction and interest now from researchers, from our students, and from the wider community. And this photo that you see there is just symbolic of what we are doing. There's this beautiful, majestic tree. It's magnificent. And we've cut a big hole through it in order to make sure that the power line can go through there. And it's just, I couldn't think of a better picture. And this is actually just outside my place. So I've taken this photo and that tree is right there behind me. I'm also wanting to recommend this book by my colleague, Professor Ron Wakari, who is in Canada at Simon Fraser University. And again, I was talking to Iona on Facebook. I also saw Ron post on Facebook, and he said that he was just yesterday submitting the manuscript for this book to MIT Press. So it was only finished yesterday. It's very new. It will come out next year. But if you ask him nicely, you might get a preview copy. So he's publishing this book, Things We Could Design for More Than Human-Centered Worlds, which is exactly spot on with what I've been telling you in this third section, the idea of post-anthropocentric design, a post-human investigation of design for a world in which humans share center stage with non-humans, and we are bound together materially, ethically, and existentially. And I think this is really where we need to be heading. We need to rethink our approaches and methods in order to embrace a notion of planetary health and planetary well-being. And we need to rethink the short-term thinking, the short-term human convenience and human comfort. It needs to be a much bigger and holistic view on the world. And with that, I'll thank you very much for your attention. This is a photo of another design project we are doing with wombats, another marsupial. They are orphaned little fellows, and we are designing hospital burrows for them so that they can get treated at this orphanage. So they're all orphans that are in care at this place near Canberra. They're very cute when they jump around, but the sad thing is that they all lost their mother. So I'm hoping that we might have some time for some questions as well. So I'll pass over to Aswin, maybe.
Yes.
Are you happy to MC any questions?
Thank you, Professor. Yes, it is. Sorry. Yeah, since we doing it virtually, I should give a big applause to your very insightful presentation, and I hope I can share this delightfulness to all of our attendees. Very interesting presentation, and open up, at least for me, open up a broader perspective on how technology and also smart city will be heading to the future, that focusing not only human, but we also share with other living being in this very planet. So of course, Professor, we still have time for discussion, and I hope all participants and also attendees might have a question. We already have a question here. I would like to introduce the person who already raised the hand. Please unmute your computer and please ask directly to Professor Ford. Should you have a question, please mention your name, your affiliation. Yes, Mr. Taufikur Rahman, please.
Are they able to talk, or are they muted? They say they are muted. I think you need to enable them.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're not part of the panel.
Yes. If is it possible, the committee please help us to unmute the attendees to have who have a question. Okay. Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Pak. Thank you, Pak Aswin, and thank you very much, Prof. Marcus, for your very interesting lecture for us today. A lot of things. My background is biology, actually, plant ecology. So I have a very interested with your presentation because of my background like this. Now, first, you mentioned about the product. The product that one of the problem that modern world today is we produce a lot of product, new style, new design, and at the cost of the waste of the previous design. So we have a lot of handphone, a lot of laptop, computer, etc. in our house, and that's become a problem. So, but this is, I think, economically, for economic reason, people are producing a new style of electronic, etc., etc. But the cost is the environment. So we are going to face with the challenge of the economic development people if we, for example, asking people not to too quickly to produce a new style of the brand new design, things like that. Yeah. This is the first question. So how we handle with this problem.
So your question in a nutshell is that if we were to produce design artifacts that last longer, so rather than having a new phone every 2 years or a laptop every 2 years, what happens to the economy? Because the economic system that we are embedded in requires growth all the time. We always need to grow. And now during the pandemic, the decline, for instance, in the economic performance is a huge problem. I think I got a couple of answers for this. One is, I think, around what many people refer to as the circular economy. which is where the design of these different products is actually optimized, not just to be recycled into lower quality products, but it's actually much more optimized to be disassembled and reintegrated into the production cycle. So at the moment, when we talk about recycling, I mean, a lot of the time the recycling may not even happen. I think in Australia, for instance, a lot of the time people put things into the recycling bin and it doesn't get recycled. It just gets, and it ends up in landfill anyway. So I think the circular economy would be interesting to actually take more serious and accelerate it. But in addition to that, I agree with you that the economic system itself is problematic. The way that we constantly expect growth and for human prosperity to be so tightly connected to economic growth. And so the new concepts that we are seeing emerge around a decentralized economy and using, for instance, blockchain as a trading mechanism through through cryptocurrencies, other new economic models such as a universal basic income are really interesting as well, in order to maintain society's prosperity without that it's always coupled together with these growth trajectories. As long as we tell everyone, both people as well as businesses, you need to grow, you need to grow. Whatever you did last year is not enough. You need to grow for next year. We will constantly be consuming. I think one of the really wise sayings that I've heard in that environmental space is that we are not facing an energy crisis. The climate emergency is not an energy crisis. The climate emergency is a consumption crisis. The fact that we are always told to buy more things in order to be happy. And so those are some of my thoughts, but I think it would be really interesting to bring together design perspectives with some economists, and especially those economists that are looking at the more progressive end of the spectrum, like looking at actually designing new economic models for the world.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
welcome.
Dr. Taufikur Rahman. Okay, is there any other question before I can read a question from Dr. Heru Purbo? Oh, we have a question from Ibu Himasari Hanan. So Ibu Himasari Hanan, can you unmute your microphone? You can directly ask question to Professor Ford. Hello. Ibu Himasari Hanan?
I think
okay.
Now is it working now?
Yes, okay.
Okay,
Please.
thank you. Because I could not do it, the unmute by myself, so must be the committee who did it. Yeah, I'm just on the progress of writing the questions, but I will read the question. So thank you, Professor, for your presentation. It was very interesting and insightful. So actually, we have already the concept of harmonious living in our culture. However, the number of human population is very huge in our country. There comes the problem. So therefore, we have the concept of hierarchy is important to manage all of the things. How do you think to place the other beings besides the human beings in this system of hierarchy? How do we formulate so that we could distribute all of resources fairly to everyone? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. It is quite a philosophical question, but let me attempt and answer. I do believe as a species we have to show responsibility, and the responsibility extends not just to our fellow humans, but I think it should also extend to God's other creations. So, and I think it is problematic if we try and prioritize this. It needs to actually be cherished equally. So we've all been created to take and play a role, and the more than human they play the role. Sometimes it's a small role, but it's very essential. So if you think, for instance, the possum that I showed you in that little nesting box, they eat seeds and berries, and their droppings then fertilize the ground. They fertilize other trees. They actually carry the seeds to other places, and it's a service. It's a service that they perform for the world, for nature. Now, what I'm struggling with is, what service do humans perform? I think we have lost our responsibility for protecting the creation, and our purpose in life has been dictated by industry brands and businesses that telling us our purpose in life is to buy things, to work, to earn money, and then spend the money to buy things. I don't think that is a good purpose in life. I think we need to revisit the creation and our responsibility for protecting that creation, and that is something I think that we can all do. And think about what kinds of what is in our power within our means to make a difference. I think at the end of the day, we need to move away from an attitude that is just about reducing our impact. Like, that's usually the notion. We want to, the saying goes, tread lightly on this planet. Yeah, that's nice, but I think we need to go a step further. We need to actually leave a legacy. Like the legacy of the possum is the service it has performed over its short life. What is our legacy as humans? We need to, I think, take that responsibility much further, and we need to reject these notions that the legacy that you leave is to accumulate a lot of money and then spend on a lot of things. This material kind of goal is something that has been introduced. And it suits the rich people. It suits people that have a lot of money because they sit in industry and they like it when everyone spends their money on these little things. But I think as a human species, we need to rethink that. And we need to think, what is our legacy in the world? What do I want to leave behind? And what has been my contribution? So rather than just reducing our impact, we need to think of a net positive contribution to the planet.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. We do have some question left in our question and answer, but unfortunately, I must obey our committee because we have limited time for keynote speaker. Again, Professor Marcus Ford, we are grateful and very thankful for your insightful presentation. I hope you can hear the applause. Yeah. Yes, thank you very much, Professor. I will share your email to our attendees and as well as our panelists.
Yeah.
We hope that we can contact you sometimes in the future to have some kind of collaborative works or academic collaboration. So, ladies and gentlemen, we already have a very interesting presentation from our second keynote speaker, Professor Marcus Ford. So now we are continue to our paper presentation. As I mentioned before, we have 4 presenters that already here in our room. Let me call our first presenter, Ms. Medria Sekarani. Please committee set up our first presenter that will present her study on the topics of land change modeling, design cognition, and machine learning. Okay, Ms. Medria, are you ready?
Yes, Pak Aswin. I hope everyone can see my presentation and also can hear my voice.
Perfect. Well, we can also hear your voice clearly. And also, I remind you that you presentation time is about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, you can start presentation now.
Okay, thank you very much. Hi everyone, my name is Medria Skarani. I'm from the Architectural Design Research Group, School of Architecture, Planning and Policy Development, Institute Teknologi Bandung. So today I would like to present our paper entitled Land Change Modeling, Design Cognition and Machine Learning. Let me first begin this presentation with a little bit of background of how the modeling is used in the design process, particularly in landscape architecture studies. We all aware that landscape is constantly changing over time due to natural disturbances and human activities. And this picture shows how human has the capacity to alter the land cover by cutting down the forest trees and making the new pathway. The alteration can be assessed and simulated using models, which are continuously being developed with different approaches. Some examples are cellular automata, Markov model, system dynamic model, and then we have statistical model, artificial neural network model, and then the agent-based model. Land change is a complex process. So the integration of different models, which combines the strength of each modeling techniques, is required to successfully simulate the alterations. Some examples of the hybrid approaches include the integration of multi-layer perceptron, or MLP, with other models, such as cellular automata and Markov model. MLP is one of the artificial neural networks used in machine learning. Machine learning imitates natural learning system using artificial intelligence tool. MLP neural networks consist of 3 layers: the input layer, the hidden layer, and also the output layer. The MLP algorithm can be used to detect the patterns in dataset, to connect the input and output data, and to map their interactions to other datasets. So this study focused on the assessment of landscape change using the hybrid approach that combines the MLP with cellular automata and Markov models. We use a land change modeler module from Terset that allows users to allocate specific areas where the land change is prohibited in the future. Therefore, it provides an opportunity to investigate the effects of policies on the landscape change. So there was a previous study which has been conducted before to simulate the future land cover change in northern part of Bandung based on different scenarios. And one of them was developed based on sketches of allocated area for further development, which were drawn by architects and landscape architects and digitized using GIS. However, the participants' cognitive process in the land change modeling has not been further discussed. So the concept of artificial intelligence was first introduced in 1956. And before that, computers had already been used for problem solving in a creative process. A study shows how architects explore cybernetics and artificial intelligence on buildings and the built environment. Architectural machine as a bridge between the human and the computational use approach to problem solving. It is argued that the architectural machine should employ sensing capabilities and immerse with the environment similar to what designers would do, formulating and solving appropriate problems. There are 2 points that we discuss in our paper. The first one is related to the use of machine learning and the development of scenarios in the land change simulations. The second one is the user's cognitive process in the land change modeling. This slide shows the Landsat imagery of Jakarta and the surrounding area as our case study area in this research. We can see here that the land cover has changed within the period of 1989 to 2019. Two general land cover types were identified from the satellite imagery using unsupervised classification. Both maps then were used to simulate the land cover change using the land change modeler module from TERSAT. The model applies the hybrid CA or cellular automata Markov model and also MLP. Cellular automata simulate the land change based on the previous state of cells and the condition of their surrounding. Markov model simulates the transition probabilities of land cover change. On the other hand, MLP uses the information on the maps of land cover change as the input layer to develop their relationship with the patterns of land cover in an iterative process. The input layers of MLP include the factors that influence the land cover change. For example, elevation and slopes, river networks and population density, and also the map indicating the location of land cover change in the case study area as seen in this slide. From this image, we can see that the alteration is mostly located in the eastern, southern, and the western part of Jakarta, which are situated in the lowland area and now are inhabited by dense populations. This is the model panel to run the simulation. The modeling outcomes are the images of transitions, like here, like this one, from one land cover type to another. Each pixel on the output images has the value ranging from 0 to 1, which indicates the likelihood of specific land cover types to change at the end of simulation. So this study basically also demonstrates the use of open source data, such as WorldPub, and also OpenStreetMap to create more maps of land change driver, thus more input data for MLP to learn. And this is an example of how the existing spatial policy can be integrated into the modeling. The information on the spatial plan and the written guidelines can be extracted to delineate the areas restricted to be built in the future, like this one. And we argue that the process is similar to the aspect of design cognition, which are the problem identification, proposing alternatives to design solution, and the application of design process strategies. Forms which are made by the users in the constraint maps then are generated based on the selected planning guidelines or concepts. The modeling process can be conducted iteratively to test different sets of spatial planning guidelines. This is an example of how sketching can be incorporated into the generation of constraint map using a scenario that proposes the connectivity of green corridor like this one along the roads and also the rivers. Sketching helps designers to think a general concept and its implementations simultaneously. It should be noted that there are at least two limitations of the CA and Markov model: the model stationary and the absence of humanization in the modeling. In reality, the land cover change is a non-stationary process which is affected by various variables. There are also lots of uncertainty factors that influence the process. So in conclusion, this study shows the potential application of the existing spatial policy and other scenarios in the modeling using MLP. This research was conducted to add on the previous study on the involvement of architects and local landscape architects in the process. We argue that the process to generate the constraint maps is similar to the design cognition aspect. And these are the list of the references that we use. Okay, thank you very much. That is the end of my presentation.
Adria, for your presentation.
Yeah.
Study about the combination between cellular automata, Markovian analytic, and also neural networks in the object of landscape design. So let me remind to all attendees that we will continue our presenter to second presenter. Then after we finish all the presenter, we will have a discussion session. Thank you very much, Medria, for your presentation. Now we will have our second presenter, Dr. Taufikur Rahman, that will have a title, Spatial and Temporal Pattern of Internet Engagement of Campus Community in relation to the Internet reliability in ITB campus in Jatinangor. Dr. Taufikur Rahman, are you ready?
Yes, thank you, Pak Aswin. The presentation, the PowerPoint has already seen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for the opportunity given to me and my colleague. So this paper on spatial and temporal pattern of internet engagement of campus community in relation to internet reliability at ITB campus of Jatinangor has been written by myself and my colleague, Bu Wuryantari Kartijo, Pak Widianto Kuncoro, Pak Yadi Prayitno, dan Pak Anton Wiguna. First of all, disclaimer, neither I'm an architect nor an IT engineer. So I am a plant ecologist and environmental studies my research interest. Yeah. But having said it, nevertheless, I have some interaction with architecture, especially in the area of landscape architecture. My name a few years ago was written in a document for proposal submitted for landscape architecture, yeah, and was once being invited as a lecturer in plan aspect in landscape architecture. Thank you very much. Within a period of 5 years, from 2010 to 2019, 3 of us, Pak Widianto, Bu Wuryantari, and myself were assigned in the management of ITB campus Jatinangor, and 2 others, Pak Yadi and Pak Anton, are the staff, yeah, in the directory of ITB campus Jatinangor. How can I change the?
You can scroll down.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, this is PDF. Okay, this is the map of our ITB campus Jatinangor. The area is about 40, more or less, yeah, 40 hectare, yeah, which is 2 times bigger than our campus in Ganesha. Yeah, and the population is, I think, the students about less than 2,000 students. So it's there is a feeling of emptiness actually. So we urging people, the students especially, and also the lecturers to, you know, come to the campus regularly and do the activities in the vicinity of the campus, not only in the building or in the lecture room, in order to, you know, this feeling of academic atmosphere is alive, in order to have that sort of feeling. Yeah. So it's still a green area, more or less still 70%, I think, the canopy for the green. We also have the forestry engineering in this campus. Yeah. So somehow it's still a healthy campus. It looks like that. Yeah. We also have jogging track here and sport building somewhere around here, yeah, and football area, which is not available in our campus now, except in the other side, yeah. So this is the cluster of the building, mostly in this area. Why? Because previously the main entrance was in this area, the main entrance, yeah. But then now it's already changed. This is the main entrance. So I think we have this sort of cluster of building in this area, and this is still green. So this greens area are plants, arboretum. Actually, this is certified. Some of them are certified species from the forestry department. Yeah. There are 2 lakes here. Yeah, first one is supplying the clean water for the Civitas Academica in this campus, and the second one is a reservoir which can be used by the local people, especially during this season like this. Due to these conditions, unfortunately, we still have some wild animals like snake. So snake are still around. So we have to give the announcement to the students to be precaution, be careful when you are having around in this area. This is the architectural glimpse of the ITB campus Jatinangor. I think the blend, the mixture of all the new building. Yeah. This is the old building, and this is the new buildings. And this is, I think, the masterpiece of Pak Slamet Wirasonjaya, if not mistaken, yeah, the architect of the previous building. This is the main building, and in the bottom is library, yeah, the library. And this is new dormitory for the students with amphitheater and also the gazebo, for students can learn outside, yeah, and have discussion, drawing, especially because many are students from the art, yeah, study program. So our study has been conducted in 2019. We do the review of the document thoroughly in our directorate of ITB Jatinangor, because Pak Wedianto, Bu Puriantari, and myself was engaged in this management at the time, yeah. But we have already not involved right now. So we also conducted some focus group discussion with staff in ITB Jatinangor, and measuring bandwidth and signal strength in 60 access points out of 144, yeah, in the morning and in the evening. We do it using a point cell and a speed testnet application, which is available already now. So that make it easy for us to see the download and the upload speed, yeah, of the internet. The traffic history of the internet also we measure using during this period using the system management and control of point access in the server of ITB Kampus Jatinangor. So we also conducted an internet survey, survey using internet. You see surveymonkey.com. The name is peculiar, but it's work. It's like the question is, we call it, how digital is the ITB Campus Jatinangor, do you think? So question is regarding how long you engage in a day with internet, time you spend most, yeah, for the students using the internet, how often the internet connection was interrupted. Yeah. And also we asked the participant to rate the internet quality of the campus from 1 to 5. Reliability in open space, and what are they assessing when they are using the internet? That is the questions. We also see the document, the accumulation of internet access point, because the access point is very important in order for the student to get access through the Wi-Fi, yeah, in this area. So when we came in 2010, actually, there's already been 10 access points, and slowly but sure we increase the number of the access points, yeah, and now it's already 144 access point. So I think most of the buildings has already been equipped with this access point for the internet facility of the student. The system is already placed in this main building. The directory, our directorate. If we calculate from general lecture room, laboratories, office, and general facilities, as well as dormitories, here are the distribution of the access point. Gedung Kuliah Umum, L building, this is for lecture rooms. 26 access point, laboratories, about 37, office and general facilities, 24, and dormitories for students, 57. So in this we see that who are the user of the internet mostly are the students. So, and they have to do some assignment tasks and accessing the course material, also Googling, etc. Therefore, we put a lot in dormitories. This is the I think the minimum required on speed from the literature that we see for web browsing, streaming music, etc. And also the reference for the signal strength in dBm. This is the record we found during that time, in the morning and at night. This is in the morning for the in the dormitory, fourth floor. There's what do you call it? Rise and fall of the internet bandwidth. And this is during the night time. It's almost the same actually between day and night. And I think the ITB has put the what do you call it, the bandwidth 24 hours the same. One gigabit in general. So regarding the question, the response from the students regarding the behavior, say how long do you access internet campus is more or less about 5 hours, and the time period they spend most is from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. So after the classes, things they do when they access the internet mostly for browsing course materials. That's why that's what they admit, they claim actually. And how frequent the internet disruption occur, either often or very often are the same. That is still, I mean, the problem because of the fiber optic disruptions in some area, because the connection that we have in ITB Jatinangor is actually through the fiber optic from ITB Ganesha. So the discussion for this is how we plan for the atmosphere of academic excellence in ITB Campus Jatinangor. So I think we should have a smart and green campus. We should have smart. It means that the internet availability, reliability is there, and also the efficiency of energy and bandwidth, etc. So we have to manage this properly, and also keeping the campus green. So the internet reliability, it's depend on access point, bandwidth, signal strength.
You have one.
Device.
Excuse me, you have one. You have one more.
Okay, and green campus, we should keep our campus green, the garden, arboretum, lawn, lakes, wetland, etc. So in conclusion, so we can say that in general, internet reliability of internet campus Jatinangor is fairly good. As respondent gives score 3 out of 5, on scale of 5. Disruption still occur because of, as I said before, the public fiber optic internet disruption. And students generally access more than 5 hours a day, especially between 5 to 9 p.m. And student access to Wi-Fi from several places, as student dormitory, lecture room, student association room, himpunan, library, canteen, etc. Student use internet mostly to browse and download material related to lectures. And besides the number of access point, the speed of internet access depend also the number of users who are connected to the internet. Therefore, the access point might be managed on off based on the student activities to increase the internet speed. Yeah. Lastly, realizing the concept of ITB Campus Jatinangor as a smart and green campus is important to achieve atmosphere and academic excellence. Yeah. This needs active involvement of all stakeholders in campus as well as political will and financial support of ITB decision makers. I think that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Taufik. This is an important study, yeah, to engage with our decision makers for the development of our second campus in Jatinangor area. Thank you very much. And now we are our third presenter, Rizky Amalia Ahsani. I hope you are ready. The title is Visual Environment for Learning Environment in the Digital Era, a Review. Okay, Rizky Amalia, the time is yours for 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Pak Aswin. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Can you see my presentation?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'm Rizky Amalia, currently pursuing my PhD from Bandung Institute Technology. Thank you for the opportunities to present my paper at Arte-Polis conference, the presentation that in the digital era. As we know, technology is being widely applied and disrupt our daily life. And especially in the learning environment, there are two kinds of technology in the learning environment, namely digital technology and lighting technology. Digital technology consists of screen projector, interactive whiteboards, video display terminals such as television, computer, notebook, tablets, and etc. And at the same time, lighting technology consists of digital sensor and dynamic or smart building components. The visual environment is one of the indoor environmental quality that influence the teaching and learning process. There are two sources of lighting, namely natural lighting and artificial lighting. And natural lighting has the characteristic of uniform, static, and light reflective, while artificial lighting has a non-uniform, non-static, and light emitting characteristic. So the digital and lighting technology is an artificial light source. The stimuli obtained from the light source activate the image forming and non-image forming pathways on the retina, which affect the psychological functioning, and the non-image forming effect contribute to the same mental process as image forming effects. With the development of technology, teacher and student are more exposed to the artificial lighting, and it caused the human sensory mechanism to receive input from interaction between human environment, both general and immediate, and as well display and control before finally being forwarded to the central processor for energy generation and information processing regulator. And this interaction will affect the activities and behavior in the teaching and learning process. So the interaction will undoubtedly affect the spatial and temporal learning environment. And this paper aims to examine the problems and opportunity from the use of technology in the visual environment for learning. So the study used literature review method, and the review was conducted by searching articles and review in Scopus and Google with various keywords. And the review result grouped into two main topics, which is technology problems and opportunity in the classroom visual environment. So this is the finding. First is the problem, the visual environment problem that arises from using technology in learning, range from visual fatigue, visibility, glare, and non-image forming effect. Visual fatigue is decrease in performance in the human vision system. Constant exposure from screen projector and display screen can cause visual fatigue. And technological advancements such as display curvature that give more efficient eye movement can still cause visual fatigue after 15 minutes of use. And the visibility of problem of using display display screen can decrease the contrast of the display image and the reflection level of the display screen material and the distraction of user attention, and also different focal distance between the display and reflected image. While visibility problem of using the projector is that ambient light need to meet standard on student desks, but it can reduce image contrast in the interactive whiteboard. And next is glare. Glare is happen when there is break contrast between one part of the visual scene to the rest of field of view. And the presence of glare spot in the interactive whiteboard caused by using projector or from ambient light can cause discomfort, even disability glare in the student. The problem with the non-image forming effect comes from the use of artificial light, either as lighting technology or digital technology. Although the blue light emitted from digital technology is less than lighting technology, it is necessary to have policy regulating this adverse effect, especially in the learning environment. Next is the opportunity. The visual environment opportunity that arise from using technology in learning range from visual engagement, visibility, glare, and non-image forming effects. First, visual engagement is closely related to visual attention, and most the student and teachers that the digital technology is teaching tool that audio visually rich, and that leads to better engagement and attention in learning and teaching process. The use of dynamic light in a learning environment can be used by teacher to adjust the atmosphere to suit activities, sunlight, movement, seasonal change, and reduce glare. And then the technological advancement make it easier for researcher to develop lighting that mimics natural light condition by changing the spectrum and color temperature. The changing of the spectrum and color temperature can give a color perception more natural, creates a more relaxing and pleasing environment, positive effect to visual comfort, alertness, mood, and sleep intensity. From the findings, technological development change the visual environment for learning. The problem and opportunities the use of technology in for the visual environment are related to glare, visual fatigue, visual engagement, visibility, and non-image forming effect. Teacher and student must be able to adapt to maximize opportunity and minimize problem from the use of technology. Change in the visual environment will also change the interaction that occur with the user physical setting, activity, and school policy. Several things must be considered in the physical settings, such as classroom layout, natural environment, lighting technology, and digital technology. Seating position of student, board angle, and position, also color of walls and window frame, will affect the visibility of projector and screen display. And the presence of natural environment and adjustment of visual environment to daily and seasonal change is essential in the classroom because it can affect student affective and non-image forming effect. And the use of lighting technology in classroom must pay attention to the interaction between ambient light and the need for task lighting. Meanwhile, the use of digital technology in classroom must pay attention to the size and luminance from the projector and display screen, specular reflectance, and the effect of his reflection. And all these physical settings must also be adjusted to the activities and conditions that occur in the classroom, such as following existing standard, using smartboard, fresh up the student, setting relaxation and informal atmosphere, and sensation of cozy and pleasant. The changing interaction between physical setting and user activity in the visual environment need to be considered in school policy because poor policy led to inadequate visual environment and significantly related to worsened student achievement. Policymakers can use technological development to provide control and automatic system and also technological and classroom maintenance. Teachers also need training on visual environment assessment level and provide frequent short break to reduce visual fatigue and other non-image forming effect on students. However, it returns to the decision of school leader as a policymaker. The literature used for this review comes from variety of different scientific viewpoints that support one another. The development of technology for the visual environment is multidisciplinary work in the fields of energy, human health, photobiology, telecommunication, and maybe human physiology. Multidisciplinary research can help understand the visual environment holistically in support of dynamic and teaching and learning process. So this is the conclusion. There are 5 conclusions from this article, which is the first. The study results indicate that the use of technology can affect the visual environment for learning. Number 2, various problems and opportunity arise with the use of technology in the visual environment, such as glare, visual fatigue, visual engagement, visibility, and non-image forming effect. Number 3, user must be able to minimize problems and take advantage of the opportunity from technology to get a class with excellent visual environment. Number 4, change to the visual environment can cause by the use of technology create different interaction with the physical setting and user activities. And the policy is needed to make a better visual environment for learning. And last but not least, multidisciplinary research can help understand the visual environment holistically in support and dynamic teaching and learning process. Okay, this is the end of my presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rizky Amalia, for your insightful presentation. I'm personally looking forward for your finding, about the visual environment that closely related with the lighting environment. Okay, next we will have our last presenter for this session, Mr. or Miss Bramanti. Miss Bramanti.
Miss Pak. Yes.
Miss Bramanti, that has a presentation title Creative Planning in Place Identity and Local Distinctiveness and Social Media, Cultural Tourism Destination of Setu Babakan, Jakarta. Okay, you have a 10 minutes presentation. Are you ready with your slide? Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Pak. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully everyone can hear my voice. This is our presentation. Our presentation from our research is entitled Creative Planning in Place Identity, Local Distinctiveness, and Social Media Users, Cultural Tourism Extension of Setu Babakan, Jakarta. Sorry, I have a technical issue. Sorry for a moment.
Okay, take your time.
Yeah. Yes, okay. I'm ready now. Let me retake the presentation. So, this is our paper entitled Creative Planning in Place Identity, Local Distinctiveness, and Social Media Users, Case Study of Setu Babakan, Jakarta. And this is the team. We have first author is Ibu Wiwi Patiwi, the second author is myself, and the third author is Ibu Samsirina. And the background of our study is BCC or Betawi Culture Center. Here we state as BCC Setu Babakan is located in Jagakarsa Sub-District, so Jakarta, and it was established in 2005. And one of the establishment of BCC was the preservation of endangered Betawiness traditional cultures or houses here. So 10 out of 5,900 houses are remain in traditional houses. So Betawi communities, the local government of Jakarta, and also the local residents of Setu Babakan have collaborations to establish this cultural center. And after 2 years since the opening of the Setu Babakan, the number of visitors range from the 300 people and could increase up to 1,500 people to attend the cultural shows, visit the museum, and another attraction. And later, these attempts attract the nearby residents of Setu Babakan to implementing the unique Betawinis ornaments. And these attempts later, after the massive use of social media also, it increased the destination image of Setu Babakan and also increased the significant impact in visitor satisfaction and loyalty. So there's no exact reference for creative planning, but here we refer to doing something in a new approach. It should be a people-centered and represent the local manifest. And you need to consider the aspects in local area, both physically and also in social demographic. The identity itself refers to the sameness or continuity and distinctiveness or uniqueness. So place identity should relate in both aspects. And local distinctiveness itself is about the features that develop the identity and focusing on locality. So distinctiveness in certain object might reinforce the sense of identity from the particular place. So according to Kim, there are 5 elements in promoting local identity, but for this paper, we only use 3 elements to categorize the findings later, which are uniqueness or distinctiveness, which create differentiation in physical characteristic of built environments, the continuity, which brings the relationship between history and present condition, and the significance refer to a positive evaluation to save the local culture and heritage. After the massive use of social media in Indonesia, people like to share the experience of traveling, and it's really important and beneficial for tourism providers for their marketing and giving the information for the prospective visitors, and also for some prospective visitors or workers in the tourism, it could be a personal publication. And there are 2 notions in the social media content creation, which are user-generated content, defined as any form of media content created by public user in online ecosystem, and electronic word of mouth that described as the informal communication via internet technology, connecting producers of goods or service to their customers or between the customers. So for this paper, we did the primary observation in the BCC zone in the north side of Setu Babakan Lake and the southeast zone from the Setu Babakan Lake. And here we are using qualitative case study for main research method, since we are dealing with the data examination and categorization from the empirical information. And as I said before, that our data was obtained from the Setu Babakan dwelling area. And the secondary data is supported from the data collection from widely used social media in travel platforms, which are Google Review and TripAdvisor. From Google Review, we got 110 reviews in February 2019, and the TripAdvisor, unfortunately, only 22 reviews from 2016 up to 2019. So our research objective is describe the creative planning in place identity and local distinctiveness in BCC Setu Babakan, and understand how the social media user perceive this place identity and local distinctiveness in Setu Babakan. So this is the result. Here the place identity in Setu Babakan shown by the tangible heritage, such as typical architecture ornaments, and it widely used in the many buildings, including public buildings and private houses. And there are 6 more common shapes in Betawi ornaments. The first is the sun ornaments, the 2 floral ornaments, 1 fauna ornaments, which mostly known as gigi balang or grasshopper teeth, a geometrical pattern of tapak jalak, and the last is ginggang, which represent the mountain or man. So uniqueness and significance from the place identity here, mostly implemented by the appearance of gigi balang as one of the most remarkable ornament in Betawi ethnics, and also ginggang that constructed more likely in railing and fences, and also the application of sunflower and cempaka flower for upper light sources in the windows, and last but not least, the tapak jalak ornament, which rarely found in the private house, but mostly found in the public buildings. So the continuity elements is also shown by the collaboration between the Jakarta governments, the Betawi societies, and local residents in Setu Babakan to preserve these local architectural ornaments. And last, the local distinctiveness is implemented through the availability of intangible aspects such as local food, dance, and performance, and also the Betawiness atmosphere. So for social media content in place identity, here we are using the building words, including building, place, and Betawi houses in TripAdvisor and Google reviews. And only 10 out of 22 visitors in TripAdvisor perceive this place identity, while only 15 out of 110 reviews in BCC Setu Babakan perceive this place identity, and the reason is maybe we discuss later. And for local distinctiveness, here we are using the buzzing words such as food, Betawiness food, Betawiness art, and Betawiness atmosphere. And here, 16 out of 22 visitors perceive that Setu Babakan has a distinctive features in intangible aspects, while only 18 out of 110 visitors in Google review perceive this local distinctiveness in Setu Babakan. As we've seen here, out of 22 reviewers in TripAdvisor, there's no visitors who gave only ratings. They like to commenting and reviews their findings after visiting the Setu Babakan. While in Google reviews, mostly people loves to give the ratings only, other than giving the reviews and comments. Maybe the reason is shown below. Maybe indication that the visitors not really familiar with the TripAdvisor as a major travel platform to promote the travel destination. On the other hand, maybe the Google reviews promote the very beneficial and interesting programs, which is local guide levels that captivate the enthusiast users of Google to give more and more reviews, and they could benefiting the user as well. But both platform, both Google reviews and TripAdvisor has a good ratings. So the highlight of this study is the creative planning to enhance the place identity and local distinctiveness, and how social media users perceive these elements. The active contribution of Betawiness community and local governments in maintaining BCC Setu Babakan might show the adequate creative planning in the context of urban conservation, but also there are conflict too. But the attempt is well done, as well as collaboration within the tourism area and residents. And uniqueness and significance elements presented through the landmark decorated by Betawi ornaments. And also the trend of internet development also plays a role in expanding the place identity. Since people are coming to Setu Babakan and more likely enjoying the distinctive features, and later it attract the local residents to create another attempt to shows the ornaments of Betawi. And this study only analyzes the implementation of physical ornaments and how this endeavor might relate to tourism development after the social media use. And for further research, we recommend the extensive studies in sustainability and implementation of Betawi ornaments, and more detail in the socio-economic background respondents. It's supposed to be a good change for BCC Setu Babakan to improve their tourism area using this social manager. So it could be a benefit for both visitors and both management. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Ibu Bramanti, for your presentation. This is very interesting topics about the impact of using social media to analyze and to conduct a creative planning. ladies and gentlemen, we come to our end of our session. But before coming to our ends, we do have times for question and answer. We already have a question here from Ibu Indah Purwanti. Ibu Indah Purwanti, so please all presenter be ready to the question. For Mrs. Endah, during school from home, I think most of the students use smartphone more than PC or laptop. It may be damage their vision ability and the other healthy issues. Do you have suggestion or opinion about that? I think this question is to the Rizky Amalia, yeah? Rizky Amalia, do you have a comment about that question?
Okay, thank you. That was a very good question. So the last research from neuroscientists say that the blue light from PC, laptop, or a smartphone that I call a digital technology can affect our vision ability, which is non-image forming effect, and it can cause damage in circadian rhythm, alertness, and visual fatigue. But the technological development also can improve visual attention of student because the technology is more audio visually rich than any other tools. So maybe we can limit our technological use. Like if you feel visual fatigue, close your technology and do something else, and stop using your technology 1 hour before our bedtime because it can cause damage in your circadian rhythm. And maybe you can control the ambient light, touch lighting, and luminance from display so it will minimize the contrast and so that can cause minimizing the visual fatigue that you feel. Maybe that's it.
Thank you, Rizky. I hope that answer question. Yeah. Is there? I would like to see a question. Whether there is a question from the participant. In the meantime, I would like to, because I do have a question of my own. I'm curious about the topics in our first presentation from Dr. Medria. I would like to know, based on your study, because you mentioned about the utilization of neural networks modeling, how do you, how many, or how, in the term of scale, how do you train your model to come up with the result that you expect to be generated by the neural network? And do you see the difference of the trends or of the emerging result from the NLP different with the Markovian models? Dr. Medria, are you there? Yeah.
Okay, Pak Aswin, thank you very much for your questions. So, for the first question is about the how I train the model using the MLP. So basically, I use the MLP and then based on the number of the driver of change. So I have 5 driver of change. I decided the number of the hidden layers first. I use like based on the some papers or some references that I read before. So after that, I trained the MLP model. So it is an iterative process. So it is definitely more than 1 or more than 2. So I run many times. Actually, I didn't count it because basically I run until I can find the maximum percentages of the model accuracy, because as stated in the modeling accuracy is around 71%, and it is actually based on my previous research. I use different case study area, and it has many layers of, it has many driver of change. It means it has many hidden layers, and it takes longer. The time of for the simulation, it takes longer, and the accuracy is lower than this one. So my answer is I did lots of iterations, and then until I got the optimum accuracy for this model. For the second question is about the modeling the MLP versus the Markov, isn't
Yes.
it?
Yeah.
Yes. So for my model, it is a hybrid model, which is it combines three different models: the CA or cellular automata, Markovian, and also the MLP. The reason why I chose this hybrid model is because I want to optimize the capability of each model. So the differences between Markovian and the MLP, for example, Markovian, it works, it models or it simulates the land cover change only based on the historical change that happened in the past. So only based on that. So in my case study, there are only two general land cover, which are the undeveloped areas and also developed areas. So to make it simple, and then based on the analysis using the model, the Markovian model only see the changes between the undeveloped to developed and then developed to undeveloped during the period of time. So that's all that the Markovian model do or does. And then the MLP is just like what I have explained before. So it has three different layers, and then I have to submit the input data sets. It requires lots of input data sets. In this case, the data sets are the what I call the factors that cause the land cover change. So that is the difference between the two models.
Very interesting study. While we are waiting, can I ask one more question to Medria, because I'm very curious about that study and I found it very interesting. Do you have any very short answer? Does this combination of three models, cellular automata, Markovian, and MLP, can be used to model other urban issues, for example, to predict urban sprawl or something like that? What do you think?
Short answer is yes. So basically, it is the combination between CA and Markov, especially it has been widely used to simulate the urban sprawl, something like that, the urbanization, things like that. So the short answer is yes. But using MLP, it has something to add more to the modeling side.
Yeah. We already have here a question for Dr. Medria, Dr. Rani. This is from Rifa Tomaswa, one of our attendees. What are the features that you can learn from machine learning? And what is the significant correlation between features that you conclude drive the prediction or inside the hidden layers? Thank you.
Okay, this is thank you for the question. This is I try to answer only based on my experience of using the this kind of model. So MLP is part of the machine learning, and it has three different layers. And then one thing that I notice is that as a user, we have a control to put the input data into the model. That is one aspect. Yes, the second aspect is that as a user, we can also control to define or to define the number of the hidden layers. So that is one of the main features of the MLP that we can adjust based on our study and based on our needs in the modeling activity or in the modeling process.
Thank you. I hope that will answer the question for Riva Tomasowa. Yeah. Okay. I already got a notification from committee that our session is already come to an end. So I do have another question, but that is for another time. So we come to our last or ending of our session this afternoon. Again, I would like to thank you for all presenter for such a very smooth presentation and well-prepared presentation, and also with all of the discussion this session. Thank you again for Professor Voth for the very insightful and very interesting presentation. Let me give applause to all of us. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now let me give this time to our committee, because I think they have some announcement or plan for a photo session.
Okay, guys, so it's done.
Hello.
For photo
Don't
session.
have in my hand.
Okay, hello, good afternoon, everybody. I
Yeah.
hope everybody can hear my voice all right.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, now it's time to turn off any virtual background that you may have at the moment. Now it's time for your actual background to shine. So we would like to, we would like now to have your photo with your actual background and probably your favorite pet.
One question. Can I grab
Yes,
my
please.
kitten first? I will
Yes,
grab
yes, please.
Yeah.
This photo session is for you and your favorite pets. So if you don't have any pets or your pet is outside, you can grab any favorite belonging nearby. Okay, I see. Okay.
Okay, this is my cat.
Cool. Okay.
Hey.
Now Pa Aswin has cats on the camera. So we have here 3 pages in our Zoom. So as most of you has already know now, please hold the pose for a couple of seconds. Oh, I see a
It's a
wombat
real
there.
possum.
Possum or wombat?
That's a wombat.
A wombat.
Oh, it's
Okay.
a wombat.
Okay, cool. We'll take the first scene. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Everybody to the camera. Okay, one.
Camera.
Second one. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and the third page, which is the last one. 1, 2, 3. Okay, cool. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, everyone. So before leaving, we have a fun poll in progress. If you have filled in that one, you can leave the room, but we have a very exciting session in our Arte Partner chat room. The link will be uploaded in our chat box, so make sure you go there directly because our partners are ready to give exciting presentations. Thank you and see you there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
没有拍到啊？有啊，就他们有拍到吧？应该到时候会上传到他们的那个。